I've often had negative views about modern art. I really don't think it comes up to the mark. Don't think it passes muster compared to what used to be produced in the Catholic centuries. And so today's video is by way of expressing that more fully. The catalyst for which was an article that came on the BBC website a few hours ago. So I'll read that to you, and it will be an attempt to demonstrate my thesis that modern art is trash. I'll nuance that a bit, but here we go. This is the article. Have we got it all there? Closer, further away, so you can focus on it. I find it quite funny. And this channel, although it's dedicated to the lofty purpose of advancing the Catholic faith, there's a part of it that's therapeutic and allows me to just vent. Here we are. Dutch museum finds beer can artwork in bin. My thesis, modern art is rubbish. A Dutch museum had to pick artwork out of the bin after a member of staff thought that the display, which consisted of 2 empty beer cans, was leftover rubbish. All the Good Times We Spent Together by French artist Alexandre Lavet shows 2 dented beer cans on the floor. They were exhibited inside the museum's lift, as if left behind by construction workers. However, a closer look reveals that these dented cans were meticulously hand-painted with acrylics, the Lamb Museum in Liss said. But a lift technician thought the art was simply the leftovers of lazy visitors and threw them in the bin. Once a curator spotted that the artwork was missing, staff were tasked with searching for it, the museum said on its website. Eventually, it was discovered in a bin bag and, quotes, miraculously, both cans were found intact, unquote, it said. The cans were cleaned and placed at the museum's entrance. Despite the mishap, the museum says it, quotes, bears no ill will towards the lift technician who made the mistake, unquote, who was covering for someone who is well acquainted with the building and its exhibits. Quotes, the theme of our collection is food and consumption, unquote, said Sietsky van Zanten, the museum's director. Our art encourages visitors to see everyday objects in a new light. By displaying artworks in unexpected places, we amplify this experience and keep visitors on their toes. And just so you want to be kept on your toes and see everyday objects in a new light, here they are. You will never walk down the street past a couple of discarded beer cans and see them in the same way again. This is helping your experience of life. The poor technician, who no doubt went through all kinds of grief because of what he'd done, you can only feel sorry for him. And perhaps one day there'll be a statue erected to him once the world sorts its head out. Now we have to kind of be a bit fair. But it just made me think. Imagine a scenario. We're sort of back to 1940. It's the time of the Blitz. And a British official is there. And the phone rings. Hello. Ah, Herr Göring. What? A choice? There's a bomb. There's a bomber coming over, and he's going to drop this one bomb on one of 2 targets. And say it again. Ja, 2 targets. The Tate Modern or the National Gallery? You choose. I say, well, that's rather odd and rather unfair. Can we not just call it a day and let this one go and be good sports about everything? Nein, not possible, not possible. Von Bomb, von Installation. You choose. Well, I'll have to talk to the cabinet about this. It's a very serious matter. You have 30 minutes until it's ground zero. Right, well, okay. So, he goes to the cabinet, this politician. And it's not 1940 anymore, it's really 2024. Not necessarily two-tier Keir's cabinet, but a hypothetical British cabinet, just so we don't have any allegations of libel. And you can imagine, can't you? DEI, wokeness, what does it want to do? After all, you have one kind of person who values modern art, and the other kind of person who's sane. After all, modern art expresses us now, as we are now, whereas all this other art from the past is white privilege art, white man's art. It stands for the empire, stands for British history, and that's not good. So the discussion is heated in cabinet, and eventually they come to a decision. And so the politician goes back on the phone. Herr Göring, we have a decision. Yeah, I'm listening. You must drop the bomb on the National Gallery. Engländer, Dummkopf, what are you saying? You heard. The National Gallery. We want to get rid of all that stuff. It represents out-of-date things, out-of-date attitudes. This is Britain of the 21st century. As you wish, you will drop the bomb on the Tate Gallery, on the National Gallery. And there ends the conversation. And so the National Gallery has exploded, all the art's gone, but we have Tate Modern surviving. Now, of course, that scenario would just show you how absurd it would be to value modern art over the art prior to the 20th century. Everybody knows it, but they won't say it. We have an art installation, if you can call it that, on the empty plinth in Trafalgar Square. It's some misbegotten abstraction, which I won't talk about. But this is the problem we've got. Clearly, if you're going to have a choice, you're going to demolish Tate Modern, because nobody will worry about what is destroyed there. Now, I got this book 20 years ago. I had a couple of motives, mixed motives. One was to get the book, but another was to go look for this particular woman who worked in this shop. But that's a long time ago. Art and the Century of Change, about art in the 20th century. And when I opened it, I just got it for this video. I thought, have a look at that. We have. I kept an article from the year I bought it. It's 18th to the 24th of August 2001, the Radio Times. And it's the very thing, before 2001, I started thinking about modern art, when something came into the British consciousness called Tracey Emin's Bed. And this is an article about it. So I didn't even know I kept it. Didn't even know it was in here. Forgotten all about it. If people say the bed is a joke, I'd say they're not interested in art. That'd be a quote from Tracey Emin herself. And the famous bed, the infamous bed, that was an art installation is here. This is art, folks. This is art. And it was, let's see, just read it. And then you've got a couple of some guy jumping on the bed. And there's another guy, an English guy, who's trying to stop this Japanese guy, I think he is, or Chinese guy, from doing that. And it says, from left, My Bed, this is what it's called, shortlisted for the 1999 Turner Prize. So it's serious stuff. Almost got the prize. And Huan Kai, one of 2 Chinese artists who romped on the exhibit, is the guy who's jumping on the bed. So, that really tells you quite a bit about the state we're in. I thought I'd leaf through this book and I came across some interesting things. Just flicking through, let's do a bit of art, see what we got. Look at this, you'll love this. Clifford Still. Art from 1954. Wonderful, isn't it? Makes you think, doesn't it? Called 1954. Okay, another random flick through. I was doing these random flick throughs earlier, and other pages. There's tons of. This is a great book, by the way. Okay, here's one. Not so abstract. Jean Dubuffet, The Cow with a Subtle Nose. From the Cow's Grass Foliage series. I suppose it's a bit better than the last one. Well, from my point of view, a bit better than the last one. But as cows go, if I was a cow, I'd be very unhappy about that picture of me. Another flick through. Now something I do like, and this is why my criticism of modern art is nuanced. Dali. Brian Sewell, who's a British art critic. I was watching a video of him talking about how he bumped into Dali in the late 60s. Dali went down. He was big shot early in the 20th century, and he went out of favour by the 60s. But his reputation went back up in the 70s or 80s. But this is his 1937 Metamorphosis of a Narcissus. I think it's really good. Really like it. And then The Persistence of Memory, 1931. I love that. Flick through again. Oh, this is one I wanted to. This is not so random because I hit it randomly before I did the video, but here we go. Because Piet Mondrian is famous. You love this. You'd pay good money for this, wouldn't you? So would I. Broadway Boogie Woogie. Painted in 1942 to 1943. You'd go to the Museum of Modern Art in New York just to see this, wouldn't you? I'm booking my ticket now. But when you go elsewhere, look at this. I like this. It's not naturalistic, Cézanne. It's not like, a bowl of fruit painted in the year 1700. But that's okay. That's okay. I think we ought to be able to still have artists who have the skill to paint naturalistically. But I like this. And then something that's a bit kind of, how shall I describe it? A bit different, a bit odd. And it's interesting, the time period, 1922. Rudolf Schlichter, The Rooftop Studios. It's something wrong with it. It's not quite right, and it suggests to me a kind of Weimar, degenerate aspect. Now, I don't know, I'll have to read this. This is how much preparation I do for these videos. But it's something that's kind of intriguing, but I don't think much of it altogether. But there we are. Oh, and then you've got some really interesting abstract art. George Braque, The Portuguese, 1911. Now, I do like this. You might call me bonkers, but I like this. I won't bother with the Picassos, but there was one I wanted to show you. Where is it now? It's, I think, what they call Futurism. I may be wrong. This. Umberto Boccioni, The City Rises, Now there's movement and there's power in this painting. In a way, it's so kind of ethereal, so imprecise, and yet you can see the horsepower and the men creating, building. So this is fantastic to me. But when I talk about modern art, I'm not talking about this, which I love. I'm talking about Tracey Emin's bed and that kind of stuff, the pile of bricks that they had in Tate Modern. So there's a lot of art that's great. Now, you want to know though, what is unequivocally art? Never mind what I like. I'll show you something I was thinking about. You know what's one of the most important events in the history of the human race? The crowning achievement of human beings as a species. I'll tell you what it is. It's the coronation of the Virgin in heaven. Christ is the second person of the Trinity, God the Son, the Logos, the Word. And he took to himself a human nature. But Mary is entirely human. Nothing but humanity in her. She is our representative in so special a way. And she's representative of women in a special way, even more than us men. And she achieved the pinnacle of human achievement. Contrast her with Eve. Obviously, she's the new Eve. Cardinal Newman said that. Lots of our people have said that. So I thought I want something of that. But also, it's a scene which has the Holy Trinity crowning her. So you have the Holy Trinity, you have effectively, implicitly, the Assumption has taken place, and the Blessed Mother herself. So I'm going to show you something that's really, really art now. No mucking about. And I was thinking of getting this. Look at that. Velasquez. Or Velázquez, I should say. This is special. But I didn't get this. Let me show you what I think is special. Some of the special things. Here we go, look at that. We've got God the Son, God the Father. Same level. Holy Spirit. Same level. The equality of Father, Son and Holy Spirit. Entirely Trinitarian. And of course they're all there. But look at this shit. Now one thing I'm not fond of, one of the things I'm not fond of, is the cherubs. I'm not a cherub man. But there we are. Each to his own. But here we have a shape. When you look at it, you see, you go from the edge of the shoulders of the Father and the Son, or from their heads anyway, and your eyes are drawn to a certain shape that culminates at the beautiful edge of Mary's robe, her blue mantle. Just there. A complete perfect triangle. Oops. And we have both the Father and the Son and Mary wearing the same colour garment, which implies a unity between them. Of course, the unity between the Father and the Son, but also with Mary. But she's different because she also has this blue mantle. And she doesn't have the darker purple that the Father and the Son have. So she hasn't got that essential unity. And then, when we've seen that triangular shape, we then look at the kind of middle of the triangle, almost the middle. Mary herself. So pretty. Rosy cheeks, which kind of reflect those purple colours. Serene. About to be crowned. About to get what she deserves for uniting herself completely with grace. And we're reminded by Gabriel, hail full of grace. And so the crown is about to be lowered on her head. So this is just I wonder if me holding this over here has caused the audio to go. Hope not. But anyway, we have here the coronation of the Virgin. So why did I not buy this, a reproduction of this? Well, you see, it's not the cherubs, it's God the Father. Now, I appreciate Velázquez was trying to show the Father as the Ancient of Days. Quite proper. The Son is the Son. So one shows a difference in age just to get the symbolism of Father and Son across, and the ancient nature of the Father. Not that the Son isn't ancient there. Velázquez is not trying to say that the Son was born in time in some kind of Aryan sense. No, the Son is eternally generated. But it's a depiction. And art can only go so far. But you see, us Baldies, we know that it's not a sign of vigour. It may be a vigour in reality, but the sign of vigour is like Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments, when he's playing Moses. Moses is already old, so Charlton Heston's hair is grey and it's sweeping back. And so I thought, and God the Father here, more so, as a point, is a bit wizened. But though God the Father is the Ancient of Days, from Daniel, by the way, Daniel chapter 7, he's not wizened. So I had to find something else. I'm still not sure I made the right choice. But I got another depiction of the coronation of the Virgin. Because to have the Holy Trinity and Mary in relationship in a painting is got to be one of the great subjects of any art. And so at some point I may put up this painting that I've bought a reproduction of, and but I won't tell you what it is at this stage. So that's real art. That's unequivocal art. That's art without any caveats. Good old Velázquez. Right, so was there something else? I think there was something else. No, that was it. So that's that on a good example, without me going through a whole load of art from former times. That's illustrative of the greatness of art in the age of Catholicism. Now, although I said I like certain artworks from, as depicted in this splendid book, The Shock of the New, none of it matches what I've just shown you by Velázquez. And that's because everything in here, everything, it's all the 20th century, everything is produced in the age of faithlessness. In the age of faith, and I'm not talking about what I've covered by in responding to Christian Prince's foolish failure to understand the actual literal meaning of the commandment in relation to images, because it means there could be no images if you take it literally, and it would contradict Bible, and the Bible contradicts itself, and so you need the church above that to reconcile. And I've read sections from a scholarly article about what Christians were doing. They had sacred images in the earliest layer of the Christian community, 1st and 2nd centuries. But I just thought I'd nonetheless read again from 1 Kings 7. And he's talking about Solomon adorning the temple. And it says, 1 Kings 7:36, and on the surfaces of its stays and on its panels he carved cherubim, lions and palm trees, according to the space of each, with wreaths round about. After this manner he made the 10 stands. All of them were cast alike, of the same measure and the same form. And it goes on, of course, that the things that Solomon did to adorn this temple. And that's because art arises from the human soul. It's not an accident. No animal, even you've got the most intelligent animals, pigs are quite intelligent, dolphins, other animals, but they never would produce art, which, because nothing will get through to the head of an evolutionist or an atheist. But that's the way it goes. But you know, this is one of the clear distinctions, the clear blue water between us and the animals. In fact, I wouldn't say us and the rest of the animals like we're an animal. We have an animal nature and a spiritual nature joined together. The angels are pure spirit. Your dog has an animal soul, but he's pure animal. The animal soul is just motivates him, gives him the power to live. It is life itself. And of course they have some higher faculties than amoeba, but you know, they don't ascend beyond their animality, whereas we are completely different from any animal. And so to conclude, I thought it would be nice to look at this. I've mentioned this before in relation to what do you do when a pope or a bishop or a cardinal says something that is a bit jarring. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Pope's wrong, because the Pope can be wrong. Catholics, just to underline that, the Pope can be wrong. It's never been the case that the Catholic Church ever taught that a Pope can never be wrong when he's speaking about a matter of faith or morals. I did, in passing in a previous video, cite the example of Pope John the 22nd, who in the winter of 1331 to 1332 preached the heresy that those who die in Christ only receive the beatific vision after the general judgment. That is, they don't receive it upon their soul being admitted into life, into paradise of heaven. This was condemned in various parts of the Catholic world, particularly the University of Paris, and eventually the Pope recanted of his errors. I think he may have waited till his deathbed. I think he wasn't in the mood to be told what to do. You know, popes. I'm sure when St. Paul rebuked the first Pope, St. Peter, as he's recounted in the book of Galatians, Peter was not happy. But I think Peter was probably more humble than some of the fellas who've been in charge since then. However, it's a salutary lesson that popes can teach error. But John the 22nd was not teaching for the whole church. This was in sermons he gave, and he's the Bishop of Rome. Remember that? He's the Bishop of Rome. He's obviously can teach for the whole world, but if he's not teaching for the whole world on a matter of faith and morals, then infallibility is not engaged. So we expect that errors can happen. Hopefully not, hardly ever, hopefully. Hopefully never. But the faith allows for the possibility. And the catechism is a tool by which we can look at what a pope has said if we're in doubt and find out whether what he said is correct or not. Whether it conforms with his own book. All the post-Vatican II popes, from John Paul II onwards, who promulgated this, accept it. So it's a rule of faith, one might say, for them. So you could actually go up to them and say, look, this is what your book says. By the way, if any of you are a bit wary of this, because it's a post-Vatican II document and you are very, very traditional, then yeah, sure, take the last great catechism, the Catechism of the Council of Trent, and read them together. I'm not aware of any contradictions, but you know, read them together. If you find a contradiction, say so, tell me. But for practical purposes, this is it. This is the guide. And I'd say something else, that what this has over the Council of Trent, the Catechism of the Council of Trent, the Roman Catechism as it's otherwise known as, from the 16th century, but still wholly applicable. What this has over that is it covers a wider range of issues, very pertinent issues, and one of which I just actually forgot because I've read it years ago. But I thought, oh look, see if it says anything about art. I bet it does. So I had that basic memory, and yes, it does. And so I'm going to read you, not the whole series of paragraphs about art, because there's addressing sacred art here, and I'm not really talking about sacred art. I'm talking about Tracey Emin's bed, and the pile of bricks, and Ai Weiwei's stuff. Ai Weiwei, I should say. I know I focused on sacred art, but that was an example illustrative of the problem with secular art. Because there can be secular art, it just has to be good. Here's what the Catechism says about secular art. So the paragraph is 2501 of the Catechism. And it just, as a footnote, it says, if you look at Pius XII's Musicae Sacrae Disciplina, I can't pronounce Latin, Discourses of the 3rd of September 1950 and the 25th of December 1955. If I were to get my companion to the Catechism, it will probably have that in there, those discourses. So I might go and look at them after, but we won't detain you on that. I'll read this paragraph. Created in the image of God, and that's footnoted as reference to Genesis 1:26, man also expresses the truth of his relationship with God the Creator by the beauty of his artistic works. Indeed, art is a distinctively human form of expression. Beyond the search for the necessities of life, which is common to all living creatures, art is a freely given superabundance of the human being's inner riches. Arising from talent given by the Creator and from man's own effort, art is a form of practical wisdom, uniting knowledge and skill to give form to the truth of reality in a language accessible to sight or hearing. To the extent that it is inspired by truth and love of beings, art bears a certain likeness to God's activity in which He has created. Like any other human activity, art is not an absolute end in itself, but is ordered to and ennobled by the ultimate end of man. And there's an explanation as to why art has degenerated so much in recent times. There's art about which one can be curious, like the one by Schlichter that I mentioned, but still there's something off-key about it. It's not about coming from the inner man and the principle of ennobling man, ennobling oneself, and really being a kind of a cooperation of the gift of God and the skills of man. The kind of art I've showed you is generally something else. God is cut off from it, and so it does not ascend. And in fact, you get actual trash. And the chattering atheists who would... the story of the emperor's new clothes. There you are, all the people, the emperor's walking through the street, got his stalkers. But nobody dares say so. He believes he's got new clothes on. And his ministers have told everybody the emperor's wearing a new set of clothes, fantastic set of clothes. So the people, and this happens with dictators, the people are a bit too scared to contradict the ministers and the emperor, who appears to be, as far as he's concerned, dressed. But it's more than that. It's about nobody wants to be the first to speak. Nobody wants to be the first to admit this is an idiotic situation. Now we have this all over the Western world. You know how it is. I don't want to speak about gender. I'm not talking about gender. I'm not talking about gender. I'm not. Not. Right? Get that out of your head. But just saying. Those who would say black is white or white is black, or just to make sure I'm not talking about race. Those who would say yellow is green or green is yellow. That what is originally yellow can become green. What is originally green can become yellow. But nobody dares say, this is mad. This is mad. The emperor's new clothes. But one little boy who's naive, he speaks up. And then they go big, and then everybody says, yeah, he's naked, stupid, he's got nothing on. So it is with art. Nobody's willing to say it's junk. Modern art is junk. But they will one day. Some equivalent of some little boy who's naive will say so. And the house of cards will come tumbling down. Just finally, notice how it says here, art is not an absolute end in itself. That reminds me of, was it Chairman Mao who said, he spoke about in a derogatory way about with the phrase art for art's sake. And there's a song in the 70s which contained that phrase. Art is not for art's sake, but for Mao and for the socialist realists of the Soviet Union. You know, they wouldn't have this abstraction stuff. It's degenerate, it's decadent. But you'd have the Soviet worker marching forward. The Maoists loved that. The Soviets loved that. Socialist realism, that is not what I'm talking about getting back to when I critique the kind of art that we have around us today. But those communists knew that art has a purpose. But although they weren't as bonkers and as actually ridiculously childish as our modern art aficionados are, they were more clear in the purpose of art. We don't accept them because they're in an indirect way satanically inspired, and so they produce this man-centered art. Well, yes, it's man-centered. It's ostensibly for the party and for power and for advancing the socialist or communist project, but it's basically, being man-centered, it's man is God. That's what they're getting at, and that's satanic. But they're right to notice that art for art's sake is a wrong idea, and that not being an absolute end in itself, one must identify what it's for. And the Catechism here says it's ordered to and ennobled by the ultimate end of man.